The family photo that exposed our biggest lie. Everything I believed was completely fake. The photograph was supposed to be a gift for Mom's 70th birthday. I'd spent weeks scanning old family albums, collecting decades of memories to create a digital collage that would make her cry happy tears. 26 years old and finally stable enough to give back to the woman who'd sacrificed everything for our family. I wanted this present to be perfect. I was organizing the photos chronologically when I noticed something odd about one from Christmas 1987. I was 4 years old in the picture, sitting on Santa's lap at the Northgate Mall, gap-toothed grin stretching from ear to ear. Mom stood beside us, 24 and radiant, her hand resting protectively on my shoulder. It was one of my favorite childhood photos, pure joy captured in perfect detail. But something was wrong with the background. Behind Santa's chair, barely visible through the artificial snow and twinkling lights, was a storefront sign. I could make out partial letters. Ason's Ellie. The rest was obscured, but I knew that mall. I'd grown up going to Northgate every Christmas to see Santa. There had never been an electronics store in that location. That spot had always been occupied by Claire's Boutique, a jewelry store that had been there since the mall opened in 1979. Curious, I pulled up Google Street View of the mall's interior. Sure enough, Claire's was still there, exactly where I remembered it. I cross-referenced the photo with other Christmas pictures from that year, looking for the same background details. That's when I found the impossible detail that changed everything. In a photo my aunt had taken that same day, I could see the full sign, Mason's Electronics. But according to mall records I found online, Mason's Electronics had never existed at Northgate Mall. In fact, the only Mason's Electronics in our entire city had closed permanently in 1983, 4 years before this photo was supposedly taken. I stared at the pictures for an hour, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Maybe my memory was wrong about the mall layout. Maybe the store had briefly reopened. Maybe I was overthinking a simple background detail in a childhood photo. But doubt is a persistent thing, and once it takes root, it grows. I started examining other photos more carefully. The 1988 Easter picture where we're hunting for eggs in what I'd always believed was our backyard. The fence line didn't match my memories of our old house. The 1989 beach vacation photos showed a pier that looked nothing like the one I remembered visiting every summer. Family barbecues, birthday parties, school events. Small details in each photo began contradicting the stories I'd been told my entire life. The breaking point came with a photo from my 6th birthday party. 20 kids from my kindergarten class gathered around a Superman-themed cake in what was supposed to be our dining room. But the wallpaper was wrong. The windows faced the wrong direction. Even the hardwood floors were a different color than what I remembered. I confronted Mom that evening, spreading the photos across her kitchen table like evidence in a criminal case. "These pictures don't match my memories," I said carefully. "Can you help me understand what I'm missing?" Mom's face went through several emotions in rapid succession: confusion, recognition, fear, and finally resignation. She sat down heavily in her chair, suddenly looking every one of her 70 years. "Oh, Danny," she whispered, "I hoped you'd never notice." "Notice what?" She was quiet for so long I wondered if she'd decided not to answer. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "None of those photos are real. I mean, they're real photographs, but they're not our life. They're not your life." The words didn't make sense. "What do you mean they're not real?" "I hired a photographer," she said, each word seeming to cause her physical pain. "Multiple photographers, actually, professional ones who specialized in creating memories." I felt like I was having a stroke. "Creating memories? You were 4 when your father left us," she began, her hands trembling slightly. "He didn't just leave, he destroyed everything. Took all our money, ruined my credit, even took most of our photo albums when he moved out. Said he wanted to erase us from his life completely." This part I knew. Dad's abandonment was the foundational trauma of my childhood, the event that had shaped everything that came after. What I didn't understand was how it connected to fake photographs. "You were so little, but you kept asking about family pictures," Mom continued. "Your friends at school would talk about looking through photo albums with their parents, and you'd come home crying because we didn't have any. You started making up memories about things we'd never done, places we'd never been. So you hired photographers to create fake family photos? I hired photographers to give you a childhood, she said fiercely. To give you memories that would make you feel normal, loved, like you belonged to something bigger than just the two of us scraping by. The scope of what she was describing was staggering. How many photos? All of them, she whispered. Every single photograph you think is from your childhood was staged. The birthday parties, the Christmas mornings, the family vacations. I paid professionals to create scenes that looked like the childhood I couldn't afford to give you. I looked down at the Santa photo, seeing it with completely different eyes. The other kids in the pictures, child actors. The photographer worked with an agency that provided families for commercial shoots. I told them what I needed, and they created it. The houses, the locations, rented. The photographer had connections with property managers who let us use vacant homes for a few hours at a time. The vacation photos were taken at a studio with different backdrops. My entire childhood was a lie. Every warm memory, every moment of belonging, every piece of evidence that I'd been part of something larger than our small, struggling family, all of it manufactured. How could you afford this? I managed to ask. Mom's face crumpled. I couldn't. I went into debt that took me 15 years to pay off. I worked 3 jobs for most of your childhood to cover the cost of those photos and everything else we needed. But watching you light up when we'd look through the albums together, it seemed worth it. I thought about all those evenings we'd spent going through photo albums, Mom telling me stories about each picture, the elaborate narratives about birthday parties I'd supposedly loved, family friends who had supposedly adored me, adventures we'd supposedly shared. All lies. Did I ever actually have a 6th birthday party? We had cake, just the two of us. I couldn't afford anything else that year. The Christmas mornings with all the presents. Those were prop presents from the photography studio. Your real Christmas presents were much more modest. The other children in the photos, did I ever actually meet them? No, sweetheart. You never met any of them. I felt nauseous. Every story she'd told me about my childhood was fiction. Every moment of joy I remembered was performed by strangers I'd never see again. Why didn't you just tell me the truth? That we didn't have much money, that it was just us, that we were doing our best? Because you were 4 years old and asking why you didn't have any pictures of yourself being happy, she said, tears streaming down her face. Because your father had taken everything and left us with nothing, and I couldn't bear to see you grow up thinking you weren't worth celebrating. The next few weeks were a blur of revelation and rage. I went through every photo album in Mom's house, now seeing the telltale signs of professional staging I'd missed before. The perfect lighting, the carefully arranged compositions, the way everyone in the photos looked just a little too polished for candid family moments. I found receipts in an old box in her closet. Thousands of dollars paid to Memory Maker's photography over a 5-year period. Itemized bills for birthday party package, holiday morning special, family vacation series. Each receipt represented another layer of deception, another piece of my fabricated past. But the most devastating discovery was a handwritten letter I found tucked inside one of the photo albums. It was addressed to me, dated 1992, when I was 9. My dearest Danny, if you're reading this, you've figured out the truth about your childhood photos. I've been dreading this day since I first hired that photographer, but I've also been preparing for it. I know you must feel betrayed right now. I know this must seem like the cruelest lie a mother could tell her child, but I need you to understand something. Every emotion you felt looking at those pictures was real. The joy, the sense of belonging, the feeling that you were loved and celebrated, that was all genuine, even if the circumstances were manufactured. I didn't create those photos to deceive you. I created them because a 4-year-old child shouldn't have to understand that his father abandoned him so completely that he took away even the possibility of happy memories. I created them because you deserved to feel like you'd had a magical childhood, even if I couldn't afford to give you one. The love in those photos is real, Danny. It's the love I felt for you every single day, even when I was working 3 jobs and falling asleep standing up. It's the love that made me sacrifice everything to give you something beautiful to hold on to. I know I should have told you the truth when you got older. I kept meaning to, but you seemed so happy with the stories we'd built together. Every time you'd smile at a photo or laugh at one of our memories, I'd convince myself that the lie was worth it. You have every right to be angry with me. You have every right to feel like your entire childhood was stolen from you. But please know that the most important truth was never hidden from you. You were desperately wanted, deeply loved, and worth every sacrifice I ever made. I hope someday you can forgive me. All my love, Mom. Reading that letter broke something in me, but it also began to heal something else. I started to understand the impossible position she'd been in. A single mother with no resources, trying to protect her child from the harsh reality of their circumstances, while also giving him something to hold on to. I called her that night. "I found your letter," I said. "Oh." Her voice was small, vulnerable. "I'm not ready to forgive you yet," I said honestly, "but I'm starting to understand why you did it." Over the following months, we began the painful process of untangling truth from fiction. Mom helped me identify the few genuine photos that existed, mostly candid shots taken by neighbors or teachers, moments that had been captured without professional staging. There weren't many, but they were precious in their authenticity. More importantly, we started creating real memories to replace the manufactured ones. We went to the places where the fake vacation photos had been taken and made genuine experiences there. We had an authentic sixth birthday party for me at 26, complete with friends who actually knew me and cake that I actually ate. The hardest part was learning to trust my own memories again. For weeks, I questioned everything I thought I remembered about my childhood. Had any of it been real? Were the emotions I'd felt genuine, or had they been responses to elaborate fiction? Dr. Martinez, the therapist I started seeing, helped me understand something crucial. The feelings you experienced looking at those photos were absolutely real, she explained. Your brain doesn't distinguish between experiencing an event and believing you experienced an event when it comes to emotional impact. The joy you felt was genuine, even if the circumstances weren't. But that understanding came with a darker realization. If my emotional responses to fake experiences were indistinguishable from responses to real ones, how could I trust any of my feelings? How could I believe in the authenticity of any relationship or experience? The answer came gradually, through therapy and long conversations with Mom about our actual shared experiences. Yes, we'd been poor. Yes, it had been just the two of us most of the time. But there had been real moments of joy and connection. Quiet evenings reading together on the couch, walks through the neighborhood when she got home from her late shift, the way she'd sing me to sleep when I was scared. These genuine memories were quieter than the manufactured ones, less photogenic, but they carried a weight and texture that the staged photos never could. They were imperfect, sometimes sad, but they were ours. I also began to understand the extraordinary length a parent will go to protect their child's sense of self worth. Mom had literally rewritten history to ensure I grew up believing I was valuable enough to celebrate. The method was deceptive, but the motivation was pure love. 6 months after discovering the truth, I had dinner with Mom at the same restaurant where I'd confronted her with the photos. This time, I brought a different kind of gift, a photo album filled with pictures we'd taken together over the past few months. Real experiences, genuine smiles, authentic moments. These might not be as polished as the other ones, I said, but they're ours. She looked through the album with tears in her eyes, touching each photo gently. "They're beautiful," she whispered. "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." She nodded, bracing herself. "Do you regret it? Creating all those fake memories?" She considered the question for a long time. "I regret the deception," she said finally. "I regret that you had to find out this way, and I regret the pain it's caused you. But do I regret giving you a sense that you were worth celebrating? No, I'll never regret that." Even though it was based on lies, Danny, every parent creates a version of reality for their children. We tell them they're brave when they're scared, special when they feel ordinary, loved when the world seems hostile. I just took that further than most. She paused, looking directly at me. The biggest lie would have been letting you grow up believing you weren't worth the effort it took to create those memories. Because you were. You are. A year later, I'm still processing what it means to have a fabricated childhood. I've kept some of the staged photos, not because I believe they represent real experiences, but because they represent something else, a mother's desperate love and sacrifice. I've also learned to value the messier, less perfect reality of our actual life together. The small apartment where we lived, the secondhand clothes, the meals of cereal for dinner when money was tight. These weren't shameful secrets to hide. They were evidence of resilience, of making the best of difficult circumstances, of love that persisted despite hardship. The fake photos taught me to smile for cameras and believe in happy endings. The real memories taught me that love often looks like exhaustion, that sacrifice rarely comes with recognition, and that the most profound acts of devotion happen in ordinary moments when no one is watching. I understand now why Mom created those elaborate fictions. In a world that had stripped away everything else, she was determined to give me one thing: the unshakable belief that I deserved happiness, celebration, and love. The photographs were fake, but that belief was real. And maybe, in the end, that's the truth that matters most. The irony isn't lost on me that I discovered this deception while trying to create a gift celebrating our family's memories. But perhaps that's fitting. The best gifts aren't always the ones that confirm what we think we know about ourselves. Sometimes they're the ones that force us to question everything, and in doing so, discover deeper truths. Mom's 70th birthday party was small and genuine. Real friends, real cake, real laughter. I gave her the photo collage anyway, but I'd replaced the staged childhood photos with pictures from our recent adventures together. Imperfect, authentic, and infinitely more valuable than any professional could have created. As she looked through the album, I realized something important. We were finally living the life those fake photos had promised. Not because we'd achieved some impossible standard of perfection, but because we'd learned to find joy in truth, connection in honesty, and love in the messy reality of who we actually are. The fake photos had served their purpose. They'd given a lonely child something to believe in until he was old enough to create something real. And now, finally, we were.